Here's a dumb idea. I'm going to do a full day of stuff at Comic-Con. What better day to break in those new shoes?
Were they on sale?
They're great shoes. They're Fluvards. They're really good.
Very nice shoes.
Nice cherry.
But yeah, they're nice. But maybe the sneakers would have been smarter today.
Something for your art.
Exactly. Suffer for my. How is it that I look like a toe, but I'm still vain? Let's make that work.
So with season 2 coming up, you had the big cliffhanger at the end of season 1.
Yeah.
And do you get to play with some time travel elements this season?
Yeah, I really painted myself into a corner. And so yes, the first episode is a 2-parter episode that allows us to do a little bit of time traveling, and which is a favorite subject to think about and write about. I've always wanted to invent a machine that would let me go back in time. But my theory is that if I ever do, I will have already come back to brag about it. But yeah, Evie does not... maybe she gets burned at the stake, maybe she doesn't, maybe she's rescued, maybe both. Time is an interesting conundrum. But we do manage to extricate Evie from that situation. But then the arc of the season for season 2 of Stan is he realizes that if he can find a way to go back in time to the 1600s, could he figure out a way to go back just a year and rescue his wife and intercede so his wife doesn't die? But then he changes everything about the world that he knows, and he wouldn't know Evie, so he keeps it a secret. And like all, what happens usually, good ideas gone wrong. There's one of my favorite things to write about is the law of unintended consequences. And every time you think you've got something figured out, there's always a side thing that you weren't planning on that happens. And that's really the arc of the second season emotionally. And then we have just a lot of great explosions and goo and monsters and the whole reason we do it. But you got to hang that stuff on something that is relevant and sincere, or it doesn't play. You need the counterweight.
So what have been some of your inspirations for the show? You guys are like one of the more fun horror shows out there right now.
Thank
so
you for
what
saying
kind of inspires you a little?
Well, I'm a comedy writer and I'm a comedian, but I grew up loving horror movies. I used to say they're my football. That's what I'm into. And Stan Against Evil is really influenced the most by the stuff that I was taking in as a kid, and that's like the show Dark Shadows, the show Kolchak the Night Stalker, a lot of these sort of 70s era stuff, and there's a real night gallery, there's a very 70s vibe to the show. And then, later on, as I got older, then other things like, there's a lot of Buffy, there's a lot of Hellraiser, there's things that I sort of was into as I got older. There's a lot of Twin Peaks in Stan Against Evil. People might not realize it, but it's just stuff that I like. And but I would say, if anything, if Stranger Things is really if Stranger Things is set in the 80s, then Stan's soul is in the 70s, although it kind of takes place in a timeless kind of genre, timeless area.
And then where do you get your inspiration for the monsters of the show?
From all of those things that I like growing up. And I grew up reading Famous Monsters magazine, watching all the Universal classics. And then it's just, a great example would be, my favorite horror movie is An American Werewolf in London. And the tone of that movie is the tone of Stand Against Evil. It's really scary, and the scary stuff is played straight, but then the people are funny because they're behaving in a normal way. They're funny because they're not behaving in a stylized horror movie way. And that's what I try to accomplish on the show. Well, we have an homage to An American Werewolf in London this year, but instead of a werewolf, it's a werepony. But a pony can kill. Just leave it at that. So it's taking things that I'm into and then just tweaking them enough to make them funny. And stuff comes into your head. I had an idea for next year, if we're that fortunate, to have a Russian doll monster, where it's a small monster inside a bigger monster inside a bigger monster inside a bigger monster inside a bigger monster. How it will fit in, I don't know, but that's a fun thing I get to think about now.
Once the show is finished filming, like how much does thinking about the new season consume your brain? Because you're doing other stuff and stand-up.
Well, I'm editing now and putting the shows together, and that's always that's a very laborious process. And but see, it's funny. I had. Do you know Bob Goldthwait? Mm-hmm. Okay, so Bob's an old buddy of mine. We had dinner the other night, and he said, do you want to direct a movie? I was like, no, I hate directing. What I love, my favorite thing to do is this. Like, I'm working on this, but I get to think about new stuff to do. My favorite part of the process is in February, when I get the go-ahead to write the scripts. I get up in the morning, I take my kids to school, I go to the gym, and then I get to sit in my house with my dog and live in this world and just kind of create a world. It's the best job you can have.
I wanted to ask, in like the creature and effect design of I really enjoy the practical effects,
yeah,
and hard camera effects. How much are you involved with the design of those? Do you say, I want to wear a pony, and then they bring you drawings, or is it?
That's basically it. Our effects crew, autonomous effects. We're all the same person. We all grew up watching creature features. We all would be here at Comic-Con. If we weren't here for work, we'd be here for fun. We go to Monster Palooza. We're all the same guy. So I can say we all want to. The reason the monsters are practical is that's the fun part, is making a monster. And we can get really obscure. I go like, it should have an It Conquered the World kind of feel to it. And they know what I'm talking about. And I think that the reason the show works is because the effects are, by and large, practical with digital cleanup. Because your eye will tell you, your eye always knows, with very few exceptions. You always know. And for comedy to work, comedy and horror have to coexist. Laughing and screaming are cousins. They're both involuntary reflexes that release tension. And you have to be very careful, because if I have a great digital creature, but in your mind, in your guts that it's digital, you can't be funny with it, because now you're out of reality, and comedy works in reality. So to me, all the air goes out of the balloon. The reason An American Werewolf in London works, the reason John Carpenter's The Thing still works, is because all that stuff is really there and your eye doesn't know it. Yeah. Which is not to say War for the Planet of the Apes didn't knock my socks off, because it did. It's, to me, I like having the goo cannon. I like blowing stuff up. That's why you have a show.
So, since we've been talking about monsters, what is your favorite for the show and just in general monsters?
Well, when I was a kid growing up, I wanted to be the Wolfman. It was like, a guy with a lot of guilt. Yeah, I could relate to that. Irish Catholic. That made perfect sense. And then, so the Wolfman was sort of like my alter ego when I was a kid. And I loved An American Werewolf in London. As I said, I finally got around to doing an homage to it this year. I try to stay away from zombies, because that's been done really well. You might not need more. I think that's covered. I love that, and I loved the show The Night Stalker when I was a kid. They had great monsters on The Night Stalker. Again, all practical. There's a lot of Doctor Who influence on this show too. The newer episodes of Doctor Who. There's a lot of the tone of our show is very similar. The relationship with Stan and Evie is very similar to the Doctor and his companion. And they're I'm not saying I'm as smart as Stephen Moffat, because I'm not, but I try to. There's a lot of influence in that.
From a creative standpoint, you've had to work within guidelines before, but IFC seems like a pretty good place for Stand Against Evil. Is it nice to have that kind of freedom when it comes to writing characters and developing storylines?
From beginning to end, I don't think this process would ever happen to me again. I kind of had this idea of like, just as a thing to do, and I was going to do it as a digital short just for myself. What if I had a horror movie and just put my dad in the middle of it, and he would behave the way my dad would in a horror movie, which we wouldn't give a shit. It wouldn't bother him. And I was going to play my dad, and I was going to have Greg Nicotero from The Walking Dead as one of my closest friends. I was like, "Can you make me look 70?" Like, yeah, sure. Okay, great. And I was going to do it, and then I just happened to have been having lunch with Pete Aronson at IFC, who's just a friend of mine. And we weren't having a business lunch; we were just catching up. And he just said, "You should write a funny X-Files. That'd be good for you." And I went, "I just did." and I pitched it to him, and he went, "Well, could you change A to B and C to D and D to E?" And I went, "Yeah, I could do that." So I went away and I brought it in and I pitched it, and we bought it in the room, which has never happened. And then I was very fortunate to get a dream cast, and IFC. There's a lot of creative freedom. Like they know what the show is, and they let you do the show you want to do. It's absolutely a team effort, and their notes are always they're few and great, because you need other eyes on a project. You can't just be up your own butt. And the limitations come from, we do the show on a budget. This is like a low budget movie. And the limitations of having to do it on a budget, I think 9 out of 10 always make the show better. I think that Evil Dead 2 I like more than Army of Darkness. Army of Darkness had a much bigger budget. I like Evil Dead 2 better. I like, more is, you don't need a ton of money to make people laugh, and you don't need a ton of money to scare people. You can tell a big story on a small canvas. And that's what we try to do. We had things, we have an episode this year with an evil baby. Yes. But we were going to shoot the finale in this clearing in the woods, and we couldn't because of weather. And I literally had no idea what to do. And I was sitting with the director, Rob Cohen. I was like, we're fucked. And then Molly Coffey, who's the art director, said, well, if it's a baby, what if it made a tree, like a blanket fort? And then Rob, the director, said, well, wait a minute, what if it was like a blanket fort version of the Nostromo from Alien? And I was like, well, if it's a Nostromo from Alien, then its victims could be swaddled in blankets like the alien cocoons. And this whole thing, and the ending that we have is great, and it's so much better than if we could have done what we planned. And we shot it in a storefront, that we rented for years. And that's what's doing a show is great. With people that are all on the same page, coming up with stuff. It was great. My character gets covered in slime.
How many times do we get to see you this season?
I'm in it a little bit more. I think I'm in 3 or 4. The fans demanded that Kevin and Denise get closer. So yeah, I'm in it. I'm in a little bit more. I'm very, I have an ego. I'm an actor. I want to be on the show. But I like being the weird guy that comes in and goes out. That's my acting career I tend to be the weird guy that comes in and goes out.
It's
Yeah,
always more fun to be the weirdo.
exactly.
We have time for this table. One more question.
Okay.
I can't think of moving along. I'm sorry, guys.
Super cool.
You have a lot of Denise is a level weirdo.
Yeah.
Stan is Archie Bunker. What's
Yes.
your favorite part about writing these characters?
My favorite part about writing these characters is writing Stan's kind of wisecracks, because 9 times out of 10 it's just stuff I've heard my dad say. It's the easiest part. And I'll leave you with this as an example of how funny my dad is and how my dad really is Stan. When my grandmother was passing away, my dad called me up and said, you better get on a plane. Your grandmother's got one foot in the grave and the other on a banana peel. He's talking about his mother. So that will tell you, it's not. it's more journalism than creative writing. All right, I guess I'm gonna go to number 2.
Thanks.
Have a great con.
I hope you guys get a chance to go to the convention itself.
Oh, yes.
Tell Johnny Sullivan hello.
I will.
Thank you.